Every holiday, my husband's parents hijacked our plans. Snarling, you'll celebrate with us or be disowned. My husband paled and whispered, please, just give in. I smiled coolly and said, sure, but first watch this. As the video played, their smirks faded into pure panic when years of their lives unraveled before their eyes. Thanksgiving? You're not spending it with them, that's final. My mother-in-law's voice was ice, or else. My father-in-law leaned forward, his knuckles white against the polished mahogany table. Your little plans with your side can wait, they always do. I watched my husband shrink beside me, his shoulders hunching forward as if trying to disappear. His face drained of color as he whispered, please, Emma, just give in, it's not worth the fight. For 5 years, I'd heard those same words. For 5 years, I'd canceled plans with my family, apologized to friends, and rearranged my life to accommodate their demands. But not today. I smiled coolly and reached for my bag. Sure, I understand family is important. But first, watch this. I placed my tablet on the table, turning it to face them. As the video began to play, their smug expressions froze. The first clip showed my mother-in-law telling my aunt I'd refused their Christmas invitation last year because I just don't care for family gatherings. The next showed my father-in-law telling my husband I'd deliberately scheduled a work trip to avoid his birthday. Lie after lie, manipulation after manipulation, all meticulously documented, dated, and organized. Their faces transformed from confusion to shock to pure panic as years of their deception unraveled before everyone's eyes. Now, I said calmly as the video ended, let's talk about what family really means. I met David 6 years ago at a friend's wedding. He was kind, thoughtful, and carried a warmth that drew me in immediately. Within months, we were inseparable. He'd leave sweet notes in my work bag, and I'd surprise him with tickets to obscure indie bands he loved. Within a year, we were engaged, and I was eager to meet his family. The first dinner with his parents, Richard and Diane, seemed pleasant enough. They asked about my job as a graphic designer, my family background, and our plans together. But looking back, the warning signs were there. How they referred to David's ex-girlfriend as the one who got away, how they interrupted whenever I spoke, how David's animated personality dimmed in their presence like a light being slowly turned down. Our wedding was beautiful despite Diane's attempts to change every decision I made. The flowers should be lilies, not roses, she'd insist. That venue is too modern. David always mediated with a nervous laugh. Mom just has strong opinions. I noticed how his hands would tremble slightly whenever he disagreed with them, even on the smallest things. The real trouble began with our first Thanksgiving as a married couple. We'd agreed to split holidays, Thanksgiving with my family, Christmas with his. 2 days before, Diane called. Richard isn't feeling well, she said, her voice trembling. The doctor says it might be serious. We need family close this Thanksgiving. We canceled my family plans and rushed over. Richard seemed perfectly fine when we arrived, watching football, drinking beer, laughing loudly with his brother. When I mentioned the doctor, Diane laughed it off. Oh, he's feeling much better now. Thank goodness you're here. David didn't notice the inconsistency. I did. Christmas with my family was postponed when David's parents surprised us with cruise tickets. Our treat, non-refundable. Easter was derailed by a sudden need to help them move furniture. My birthday dinner was interrupted by their unannounced visit with a family emergency that mysteriously resolved once my reservations were canceled. The pattern was clear, but David couldn't see it. They're just lonely, he'd say. They miss me. Each time, I swallowed my frustration and accommodated. Each time, I watched my own family drift further away, confused by my constant cancellations. Then came last Christmas, my grandmother's last Christmas, though we didn't know it then. She'd been fighting cancer, and all she wanted was the family together. I'd told David's parents months in advance, marked it on calendars, mentioned it in every conversation. Of course, Diane had said, patting my hand. Family comes first in times like these. 2 days before Christmas, Diane called David in tears. His father had fallen on ice and needed help around the house. Just for the day, she promised. You'll be back for your wife's family dinner. David went. Hours passed. My calls went unanswered. At midnight, he finally called. His father needed monitoring overnight for a possible concussion. They couldn't be left alone. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'll make it up to you. I spent Christmas without him, holding my grandmother's frail hand as she asked repeatedly where David was. He's coming, Grandma, I lied, watching the door. He'll be here soon. But he never came. 3 weeks later, she was gone. The day after her funeral, I ran into David's cousin Michael at the coffee shop near our house. Sorry we missed you at Richard and Diane's New Year's party, he said. Looked like a blast from the photos. New Year's party? I asked, confusion giving way to a sickening realization. Yeah, the big one at their house. David was bartending, made those fancy cocktails everyone loved, the ones with the flaming orange peels. Richard seemed fine, was showing everyone his new golf clubs. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. My stomach dropped. There was no fall, no injury. They'd lied to steal him away, and he'd been part of an elaborate celebration while I sat with my dying grandmother. If you've ever felt that sick realization that you've been manipulated by family, you know that moment when everything shifts. Hit subscribe to Reddit Family Sagas for more stories about standing up to toxic family dynamics, because sometimes the most important boundaries are the ones we never thought we'd need to set. That night, I didn't confront David. Instead, I called my college roommate Jen, who now worked in digital forensics. I need to understand what's happening. I told her, my voice breaking. Am I crazy? Is this normal? Jen hesitated before speaking. I have a feeling you're not the first woman they've done this to. Her words sent a chill through me. What do you mean? These patterns? They're too practiced. Too perfect. Send me everything. Texts, emails, social media. Let's find out what we're really dealing with. Over the next months, I became a detective in my own marriage. I saved texts where Diane claimed I'd said things I never did. I recorded calls where Richard made up emergencies that never existed. I collected social media posts that contradicted their excuses. I created a timeline of every holiday, every special occasion they'd hijacked. The pattern was undeniable. They always struck when something mattered to me, never when it was convenient for them. They always had a crisis that mysteriously resolved once my plans were ruined. The most disturbing discovery came when I met David's childhood friend, Tyler, for coffee. I'm surprised David brings you around his parents at all, he said, after what happened with his ex. What happened? I asked, my coffee suddenly tasting bitter. Tyler looked uncomfortable. His parents told everyone she was unstable, controlling. They said she tried to cut David off from them, but really, she just wanted normal boundaries. They smeared her reputation until David believed she was the problem. Eventually, she couldn't take it anymore and left. Did they do this with anyone else? I asked, thinking of Jen's words. Tyler nodded slowly. Every girlfriend who lasted more than a few months. There was Melissa before Sarah, and I think someone in college too. They all eventually became the crazy ex in family stories. I was following the same script, I realized. They were isolating David, painting me as the villain, and he was too deep in the fog to see it. But unlike the others, I had something they didn't expect. Evidence. With Jen's help, I compiled everything into a chronological video with dates, screenshots, and recordings. We added captions, highlighting contradictions, timestamps proving impossibilities, and side-by-side comparisons of their different stories. This is nuclear, Jen said when we finished. Are you sure you want to do this? I thought of my grandmother asking for David until her last breath. I've never been more sure of anything. I waited for the right moment, Thanksgiving, when they'd inevitably make their annual demand. As the video played their contradicting stories, my father-in-law's face twisted in fury. This is a setup, fabricated. My mother-in-law sobbed dramatically, clutching David's arm. She's manipulating you, after everything we've done for you. But David wasn't looking at her. He was transfixed by the screen, watching his mother tell his boss I was too unstable to attend the company party, the same night she'd told him I'd chosen to work late instead. You told me Emma didn't want to come, he said quietly. You said she thought your gatherings were boring. David, honey, she's manipulating you. Diane reached for his hand, but he pulled away. The timestamps, Mom. The recordings. That's your voice saying Emma refused to help when Dad was sick. But she was the one who drove him to physical therapy twice a week while I was traveling. The video continued, showing Richard's Facebook post about their quiet Christmas at home, the same day he'd supposedly fallen on ice. It showed Diane telling David's sister I'd refused to host his birthday party, followed by her email to me canceling the surprise party I'd planned. Richard stood up, pointing at me. "This is a violation of privacy. Recording people without consent." "One-party consent state," I replied calmly. "And most of this is from your public social media or group texts." David's sister Jessica, who'd been silent until now, leaned forward to see the screen better. "Wait, you told me Emma refused to help plan Mom's surprise birthday party. But that email, you specifically told her not to come?" The room fell silent as more family members recognized the discrepancies. Years of carefully constructed narratives were collapsing. "I think," David said, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it around his parents, "we need to leave." "If you walk out that door with her," Richard threatened, "don't bother coming back." David stepped back. "Then explain why your own words contradict each other, Mom." Silence filled the room like smoke. He turned to me, offering his hand. "Let's go home." In the car, David broke down. "I didn't see it. All these years, I didn't see what they were doing to you, to us." "They're your parents," I said. "You weren't supposed to see it." That night, we talked until sunrise. About his childhood, where love was always conditional. About the guilt they'd installed in him like programming. About how he'd been trained to put their needs first, always. "I remember being 8, he said, and wanting to go to a friend's birthday party. Mom got sick suddenly, couldn't get out of bed. Dad said I needed to stay home and help. I missed the party. The next day, I saw them laughing in the kitchen, completely fine. When I asked about it, Dad said, 'Family comes first, David. Always.' I need help," he admitted. "Professional help." The next day, he found a therapist specializing in family trauma. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Richard and Diane launched a campaign to bring David back into the fold. Calling relatives with stories about my mental breakdown, showing up at our house unannounced, even contacting his workplace with concerns about his unstable home life. But something had changed in David. Each manipulation attempt only strengthened his resolve. In therapy, he began recognizing patterns that had shaped his entire life. "It's like I've been wearing glasses with the wrong prescription," he told me. "Everything's clear now, but it's disorienting." For Christmas, we rented a cabin in the mountains, just the two of us. No phones, no drama. We hiked through snow-covered trails and talked about creating our own traditions. For the first time, holidays felt like a choice, not an obligation. By spring, David had established clear boundaries with his parents. They could be part of our lives, but on new terms. No more demands, no more lies, no more triangulation. "We miss you," Diane said during their first supervised visit. "We just want our family back." "I'm still your family," David replied. "But Emma is my family too. And if you want to be in our lives, you need to respect that." They didn't like it. They tested boundaries constantly. But with each attempt, David grew more confident in standing his ground. 1 year later, we hosted Thanksgiving at our home. My parents came, along with friends and chosen family. David's sister Jessica came too. She'd had her own reckoning with their parents' behavior. Richard and Diane declined our invitation, sending a group text to extended family about how we'd excluded them. But this time, their tactics fell flat. Too many people knew the truth. That evening, as we sat around our table sharing gratitude, David squeezed my hand. "I'm thankful for truth," he said, "and for second chances. Because sometimes the family you fight hardest to protect is the one you choose to build." The most unexpected gift from this journey wasn't just reclaiming our holidays, it was discovering who we could be without the weight of manipulation. David found his voice. I found my trust in him again. Together, we found a new definition of family, one built on honesty, respect, and real love. Sometimes standing up for yourself means being willing to show the receipts. Sometimes healing means letting others see exactly what's been happening behind closed doors. And sometimes the family you fight hardest to protect is the one you've chosen to build together. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to Reddit Family Sagas for more journeys through complicated relationships and the courage it takes to break toxic patterns. Share in the comments. What boundaries have you had to set with family members? Your story might help someone else find their strength.